Great. Welcome, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us on this special Tuesday, our Toolbox Tuesday. I'm Kimberly Clark from SCAG's Sustainability Department. Today's content is going to cover our recently updated SmartGrowth infrastructure website, and the website highlights funding sources and financing tools that can fund various types of smart growth infrastructure projects, including affordable housing, transit, and climate-safe infrastructure. The website also includes case studies of smart growth projects that have utilized these tools and funding sources. Next slide, please. Some basic housekeeping before we begin the presentation. A reminder, please do mute your mics and cameras and phones. Questions will be answered during the question and answer portion at the end of the presentation. They will be voiced by staff during that time, so please feel free to enter your questions in the chat as we go. All presentation materials will be shared with participants following today's meeting, and the session will be recorded. Next slide, please. A quick reminder for all participants, SCAG is now accepting nominations for the 2021 Sustainability Awards. This year's Sustainability Awards will honor plans and projects with awards in the following categories: active health and safe communities, alternative fuels and infrastructure, efficient and sustainable land use, resource conservation and climate action, and housing innovation. The deadline to submit a nomination is February 26, 2021. Next slide, please. Now to introduce today's speaker, Vanessa Reyes Salazar. Vanessa is currently a second-year AmeriCorps Civic Spark Fellow at SCAG and has been at SCAG since September 2019. Throughout her time, Vanessa has worked on a variety of projects from the SoCal Climate Adaptation Framework to the Green Region Indicators, also housing supported infrastructure key connection from Connect SoCal. Prior to joining Civic Spark, Vanessa graduated from Scripps College in May 2019 with a BA in Environmental Analysis. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Vanessa to begin our session.
Thank you, Kim, for that wonderful introduction. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for being present for today's Toolbox Tuesday. My name is Vanessa Reyes Salazar, and I'm going to be sharing with you all SCAG's Smart Growth Infrastructure website. Building off of some of the previous content on the website, some new information on some current funding tools and financing tools and funding sources were added to the website, in addition to some case studies of projects that have utilized these tools and funding sources. So I'll briefly go over the agenda of today's call. So we're going to start off with an overview of the Smart Growth Infrastructure website content, and we'll be following the structure of the website. And then we're going to do a quick website demo to give you all a visual idea of how all this information looks on the website and to get you familiar with how the website looks like. And then we're going to end with some Q&A. So the goal of the Smart Growth Infrastructure website is to provide jurisdictions with information on current financing tools and funding sources that can fund a wide range of smart growth infrastructure. The financing tools and funding sources outlined on the site can go towards funding a wide range of smart growth projects, from community facilities to transit-oriented development to transit stations, affordable housing, climate safe infrastructure, to name a few examples. The information on the website is organized into 4 main pages, and they are in order: case studies, funding sources and special districts, financing tools, and partnerships. And here's what the homepage of the Smart Growth Infrastructure website looks like. The website can be found at scag.ca.gov/smart-growth-infrastructure. And the homepage will provide some background on the site, as well as list out some of the smart growth projects that the tools and funding sources listed on the site can fund. And also on the homepage listed out are the 4 main sections of the website, which you can also see here to the left, and that is case studies, funding sources and special districts, financing tools, and partnerships. And I'll be diving into each section in the following slides. So starting off with case studies, the case studies section on the website highlights some current smart growth infrastructure projects that have utilized one or a combination of the financing tools and funding sources listed on the website. The case studies page is intentionally set at the very top of the website so that real-world examples of projects that have utilized these tools are available from the very beginning of the website. And the full list of case studies are available on the case studies page. The case studies are also sprinkled throughout the website and cited under each of the funding sources and tools sections on the site. Case studies on this page are categorized into two categories, and that is financing and funding tools and strategies, which are case studies of projects that utilize one or more financing and funding tools, and parking management strategies, which are case studies of parking management and financing strategies. And case studies are based in the SCAG region across the state, and there are a couple of case studies that are based outside of California. And for your reference, here's what the case studies page looks like on the website. I'll be going through all of the case studies available on the site as we walk through each section of the presentation. So moving on to the next main section of the website, and that is funding sources and special districts. The funding sources and special districts page outlines sources of funding that jurisdictions can utilize to fund various types of smart growth projects, such as affordable housing, transit, facilities maintenance, climate adaptation, and resilience projects, to provide some examples. For this page, funding is defined as a revenue stream from a tax, fee, grant, special district, or other source that generates money to pay for an improvement or project. And this page focuses on 4 types of funding sources, and those are in order: user fees, value capture, grants, and CEQA streamlining districts. And for your reference, here's what the funding sources and special districts page looks like. As you scroll through the page, you can see each section for each funding source, so user fees. And as you scroll down, you can see value capture, grants, and followed by CEQA streamlining districts. And I'll be diving into each of these types in the next couple slides. So starting with user fees. User fees are fees charged for the use of public infrastructure or goods, such as a toll road or bridge. These fees are typically set to cover a system's yearly operating and capital expenses. And user fee revenue can be used towards funding new infrastructure. However, depending on the amount of revenue generated as well as the proposed infrastructure, doing so may require raising fee rates. And for your reference, here's what the user fees page looks like on the website. It provides more information on user fees as well as cites some case studies of projects that have utilized user fees. And I'll be going over some of those case studies in the following slides. So starting with the Century City Downtown Parking Management case study. The City of San Diego implemented several parking management strategies to address parking demand in its downtown Century City area. Some of these strategies included implementing smart meters to increase on-street parking, as well as building 2 parking structures in areas with the most parking shortages. And although this case study pulls from user fees, it also uses a combination of other tools and funding sources, and those are found in the relevant tools section of the case study. And all case studies have this relevant tools section at the end, which cites the tools and sources that that particular case study uses. And as such, this case study can be found cited in other sections of the website. Next case study we have is Redwood City Downtown Meter Zone. Redwood City created the Downtown Meter Zone program to help manage the city's existing parking options. This program included altering rates and time limits for metered on-street parking, as well as managing multiple public and private garages. The program led to increased parking efficiency, as well as increase in revenue generated from metered public parking. And this case study utilizes user fees, but also utilizes a combination of other tools. And those are listed out in the relevant tools section of the case study. And as such, this case study is cited in other sections of the website. Next, we have the Old Pasadena Parking Management Zone case study. The City of Pasadena implemented parking management measures to reduce congestion and fund improvements in its Old Pasadena downtown area. These measures included reinstalling parking meters and utilizing meter revenue to fund streetscape improvements in the area. Additionally, a parking credit program for commercial property owners was created as part of these measures. And although this case study also utilizes user revenues, user fees, it also utilizes a combination of other tools, and those are found in the relevant tools section. And as such, this case study is cited in multiple sections on the website. The last case study we have for user fees is the Aurora Strategic Parking Plan and Program case study. The city of Aurora near Denver, Colorado completed a plan and study of a parking management strategy for a light rail corridor. The study envisioned implementing parking fees and other parking management tools with the goal of effectively managing parking and raising revenue for future parking infrastructure along this light rail corridor. And although this case study utilizes user fees, it also utilizes a combination of other tools, and those are found in the relevant tools section of the case study. And as such, this case study is found cited in other sections of the website. So moving on to the next funding source available on the site, and that is value capture. Value capture raises revenue by capturing the value generated by public infrastructure improvements and or a strong real estate market. Value capture can look in very different forms. It can look like a new assessment, tax, or fee, such as a special localized tax. It can look like diverting new revenues generated by an existing tax, as is done in tax increment financing. Or it can look like a revenue sharing agreement that allows a government agency to share in some of the revenues generated by developing publicly owned land, as is done in joint development. This site covers quite a number of value capture strategies, but I'll be diving into each one in the following slides. For your reference, here's what the value capture page looks like on the website. It provides more information on value capture, as well as lists out all of the sections for each of the value capture strategies listed on this site. And I'll be diving into each one. Starting with Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, or EIFD. EIFDs are property-based tax increment financing districts established by Senate Bill 628. They can fund a wide range of economic development projects, as well as projects of community-wide significance. For example, affordable housing, transportation infrastructure, or sewage treatment. Several legislative measures have passed that have expanded the types of projects EIFDs are eligible to fund. For example, Assembly Bill 733 allows for EIFDs to fund climate adaptation and resilience projects, and Senate Bill 1145 allows for EIFDs to fund infrastructure maintenance costs. Some other EIFD requirements include that the Public Financing Authority, or PFA, that governs an EIFD must be made up of at least 3 elected officials and 2 local community members. EIFDs also require that they are formed upon the approval of the district's infrastructure financing plan, which is a plan that outlines the projects the EIFD will fund, as well as outlines how funding will be allocated to the EIFD. And this plan is prepared by the PFA, and EIFD boundaries do not have to be contiguous. And here's what the EIFD page looks like on the website. It provides more information on EIFDs, as well as cites case studies of EIFDs that are fully formed, are approved, are in process of formation, and special types of smart growth infrastructure that EIFDs can fund. And I'll be going into each one in the following slides. So starting with the County of Los Angeles Wisconsin EIFD case study. The County of Los Angeles approved a resolution of intent to establish an EIFD in May 2020. The goal of the West Carson EIFD is to fund the projects outlined in the West Carson Transit-Oriented District-Specific Plan. And some of these projects include pedestrian improvement and connectivity, landscaping and green space improvements, to name a few examples. This EIFD was actually very recently approved. It was approved at the end of January 2021. And it is the second SCAG-supported EIFD and one of the first county-led EIFDs in the state. Next, we have the City of Placentia, County of Orange EIFD. The City of Placentia approved a resolution of intent to establish an EIFD near the upcoming Placentia Metrolink station in February 2019. The EIFD will fund street upgrades and sewer and water infrastructure enhancements to increase housing capacity among its list of projects. The County of Orange approved county participation in the EIFD with the approval of a similar resolution in April 2019. And with the EIFD being approved in September 2019, it became the first city-county EIFD partnership and was the first SCAG-supported EIFD. Next, we have the City of Laverne, County of Los Angeles EIFD. The City of Laverne approved a resolution of intent to establish an EIFD at the future Metro Gold Line Station in 2017. The EIFD will fund transit-oriented development as well as connectivity enhancements and expansion of utilities to accommodate housing growth, among a list of projects. County of Los Angeles approved county participation in the EIFD in January 2020. And with the approval of the EIFD in August 2020, it became the second city-county EIFD partnership. Next, we have the City of San Diego Otay Mesa EIFD, which is one of the first EIFDs to be formed in the state. The City of San Diego approved a resolution of intent to establish an EIFD in Otay Mesa in February 2017. The goal of the EIFD was to fund projects outlined in the Otay Mesa Community Plan, as well as the Otay Mesa Public Facilities Financing Plan. And some of these projects include economic development and public facilities improvements. And the EIFD was approved in 2017. Next, we have the City of West Sacramento EIFD, which was the very first EIFD to be approved and formed in the state. The West Sacramento EIFD will fund projects outlined in the city's master plan and capital improvement plan. And some of these projects include economic development near the city's waterfronts and public facilities improvements. And the EIFD was approved in June 2017. Next, we have the City of Redondo Beach EIFD. The City of Redondo Beach approved a resolution of intent to establish an EIFD at the city's now closed AES power plant in May 2019. The EIFD is proposed to fund open space and park development, as well as wetland restoration, among a list of projects. And the EIFD is still in process of formation. Next, we have the City of Fresno EIFD. City of Fresno approved a resolution of intent to establish an EIFD near the Blackstone Avenue Bus Rapid Transit Station in downtown Fresno in April 2020. The EIFD will fund transportation improvements, including safety and accessibility enhancements, as well as bus infrastructure, among other projects. And the EIFD was approved in October 2020. The next and final case study that we have for EIFDs is unique in that it is not focused on any one specific project within a city or county. Rather, it's focused on a type of smart growth infrastructure that EIFDs can fund to help to increase local climate resilience, and that is climate safe infrastructure. Climate safe infrastructure is defined by the California Natural Resources Agency's Climate Safe Working Group as infrastructure that is sustainable, adaptive, and that meets design criteria that aim for resilience in the face of shocks and stresses caused by the current and future climate. So moving on to the next value capture strategy on the website, and that is Community Revitalization and Investment Authority, or CREA. CREAs are a property-based tax increment financing district established by Assembly Bill 2 that fund affordable housing and other infrastructure projects in disadvantaged communities. Because CREAs are focused on disadvantaged communities, in order to qualify, a city or county must meet the criteria for disadvantaged communities. So, for example, have areas with high unemployment or high crime rates. Other CREA requirements include a 25% affordable housing set aside. The PFA that governs a CREA must be made up of at least 5 members, including 3 members of a legislative body and 2 local community members. And CREAs do not require a public vote for creation or issuance of bonds, however, are subject to majority protest at adoption. Here's what the CREA page looks like on the website. It provides more information on CREAs, and although there are no cited case studies for CREAs, as there are currently no CREAs in process of formation or approved, there is a URL on the page of a map that Cost Mountain Companies created of CREAs that are underway. Next, we have the next value capture strategy. We have our Neighborhood Infill Finance and Transit Improvements Act, or NIFTY. The NIFTY Act, established by Assembly Bill 1568, authorizes cities and counties to allow EIFDs to funnel sales and use tax revenues towards proposed projects. To establish a NIFTY, a city or county must adopt an ordinance that outlines how sales and use tax revenues will be allocated to the EIFD. And some other NIFTY requirements include that NIFTYs can only be applied to EIFDs whose boundaries are quarter-minus with city or county boundaries. NIFTYs also require the approval of 55% of registered voters to issue bonds, and NIFTYs have a 20% affordable housing requirement. Here's what the NIFTY page looks like on the website. It provides more information on NIFTYs as well, but does not cite any case studies as there are currently no NIFTYs in process of formation or fully formed. Next, we have Nifty Twos, or the Second Neighborhood Infill Finance Improvements Act, Transit Improvements Act. Nifty Twos, established by Senate Bill 961, are similar to NIFTYs but have a stronger emphasis on affordable housing near transit, urban greening, and active transportation. Nifty Twos have very similar baseline requirements as NIFTYs. An ordinance must be adopted to establish a Nifty Two. EIFD boundaries must be quarter-minus with city-county boundaries, and Nifty Twos require 55% of registered voters to issue bonds. Some other Nifty Two requirements include that projects must be within half a mile from a major transit stop. Nifty Twos also have a 40% affordable housing requirement and require that 10% of funds go towards parks and urban greening or active transportation projects. Here's what the Nifty Two page looks like on the website. It provides more information on Nifty Twos, but there are no cited case studies as there are currently no Nifty Twos in process of formation or fully formed. Next, we have Affordable Housing Authority, or AHA. AHAs were established by Assembly Bill 1598 and can utilize property or sales tax increment to provide bonds for affordable housing and workforce housing production. Because AHAs have a strong emphasis on affordable housing, they are funded by an affordable housing fund and require that 95% of funds go towards affordable housing. Other AHA requirements include that its governing body must be composed of an odd number of members, with at least 3 city council or board of supervisor members and at least 1 community member. AHA boundaries must be quarter-minus with city-county boundaries, and an affordable housing investment plan must be adopted. Here's what the AHA page looks like on the website. It provides more information on AHAs, but there are no cited case studies as there are currently no AHAs in process of formation or fully formed. Next, we have Infrastructure and Revitalization Financing District, or IRFD. IRFDs, established by Senate Bill 229, can fund housing development and other projects of community-wide significance in current and former redevelopment project areas. IRFDs can fund affordable housing, highway and transit facilities, sewage treatment, to name a few examples of projects they can fund. And some IRFD requirements include 2/3 voter approval for formation and to issue bonds. IRFDs do not have an affordable housing percentage set-aside requirement, but any district that does develop housing must have at least 20% low to moderate income housing. IRFDs are governed by the same governing body as the city or county creating the district, and the governing body is responsible for preparing and approving the district's infrastructure financing plan, which outlines the projects the IRFD will fund, as well as how funding will be allocated to the IRFD. And district project areas can be non-contiguous. Here's what the IRFD page looks like on the website. It provides more information on IRFDs as well as cites case studies of current IRFD, and that is the San Francisco Treasure Island IRFD. So the Treasure Island IRFD is the first IRFD in the state. It's established by the city of San Francisco and is overseen by the Treasure Island Development Authority. This project area draws tax increment funds from the IRFD, but also draws revenue from a community facilities district. And I'll be going into what community facilities districts are within the next couple slides. But the Treasure Island IRFD funds economic development, geotechnical improvements, and infrastructure improvements, among other projects in this area. And it was approved in 2017. The next value capture strategy we have is development impact fees, which are a one-time charge to new development. These fees are charged to new development to fund future capital facilities needs catalyzed by that new development. And as such, these fees can only be used to cover the cost of new uses. They cannot cover the cost of existing uses. And voter approval is not required to establish a development impact fee. Here's what the development impact fees page looks like on the website. It provides more information on this funding source, as well as cites case studies of projects that have utilized this funding source. And the case studies for this page are the White Flint Sector Plan case study, as well as the Aurora Strategic Parking Plan case study. I covered the Aurora Strategic Parking Plan earlier in the presentation, so I'm going to dive into the White Flint Sector Plan. So the White Flint Sector Plan is the plan that covers the Washington metropolitan area transit authorities, White Flint Metro Rail Station, and Montgomery County, Maryland. So this is one of our out-of-state case studies. The plan is focused on bringing transit-oriented development and facilities improvements to the area, and the plan was adopted in 2010. And although this case study pulls from development impact fees, it also pulls from other tools, and those are listed on the relevant tools section of the case study. And as such, this case study is found cited in other sections of the website. Next, we have Special Assessment District, which are districts where property owners agree to pay an additional assessment to fund specific improvements or services, such as public transport improvements that will benefit that district. The amount each property owner pays must be directly proportional to the benefit the property will pay, the benefit the property will receive from the proposed improvement. And districts are established by a vote of the property owners and require a simple majority of 50% plus 1. Here's what the Special Assessment District page looks like. It provides more information on special assessment districts and cites case studies of projects that have utilized this funding source. And those include the Aurora Strategic Parking Plan case study, the Emory Go-Round case study, and the White Flint Sector Plan case study. I covered the White Flint Sector Plan and Aurora Strategic Parking Plan case studies earlier in the presentation, so I'm going to cover the Emory Go-Round case study. The Emory Go-Round, which is a shuttle system that transports Bay Area commuters between the BART MacArthur Station and Emeryville. It began as a partnership between the city of Emeryville and local private corporations. And it was funded by a property-based business improvement district, which is a type of special assessment district. And although this case study utilizes special assessment districts as a funding source, it also utilizes a combination of other tools, and those are listed out in the relevant tools section. And as such, this case study can be found cited in other sections of the website. Next, we have Melrose Community Facilities District, or CFD. CFDs are a type of special tax district formed when property owners within an area agree to impose a property tax to fund infrastructure improvements or services. CFDs are flexible in both the basis and application of tax, with the only standard for the tax being that it is reasonable and not based on property value. CFDs require 2/3 property owners vote if less than 12 registered voters live within the district. However, if there are more than 12 registered voters living within the district area, then 2/3 of voter approval from registered voters is required. Here's what the CFD page looks like on the website. It provides more information on CFDs, as well as cites case studies of projects that have utilized CFDs. So we have the Burbank Collection Community Facilities District case study, as well as the Treasure Island IRFD case study. I covered the Treasure Island IRFD case study earlier in the presentation, so I'm going to dive into the Burbank Collection case study. So the Burbank Collection is an urban retail space with condominiums and a 732 space parking garage. A private developer took the lead in developing the condos as well as the parking garage, and the city purchased and owns a public component of this parking garage. And the city finances public component through issuing revenue bonds backed by community facilities, by a CFD. And although this case study utilizes CFDs as a funding source, it also pulls from other tools, and those other tools are listed in the relevant tools section of the case study. And as such, this case study can be found cited in other sections of the website. Next, we have development agreements, which are agreements where cities negotiate and create an agreement with developers in order to obtain desired improvements in exchange for development rights. The public benefits that these agreements can provide vary by project and its anticipated costs, revenues, and other factors. And here's what the development agreements page looks like. It provides more information on development agreements, as well as cites case studies of projects that have utilized development agreements. And those include the Burbank Collection case study and the Redwood City case study, which I covered earlier in the presentation. Next, we have joint development, which is a real estate development project that involves a cooperative arrangement between a private sector entity and a public entity, so a city, county, or transit agency. This arrangement can take many forms, from the sale lease of public land to joint construction of transit or other public facility, and it is only applicable in a scenario where the public sector owns the land being developed. And here's what the joint development page looks like on the website. It provides more information on joint development and cites case studies of projects that have utilized this funding source. So the case studies for this page are the West Dublin BART, the Burbank Collection case study, and the Redwood City case study. I have covered the Burbank Collection as well as the Redwood City case studies earlier in the presentation, so I will cover the West Dublin BART case study. So the West Dublin BART has been in operation since 2011 and was completed as an infill station between the Dublin Pleasanton and Castro Valley BART stations. It was funded by a combination of funding sources, including joint development, as well as private transaction fees and user fees. And because this project pulled from a combination of funding sources and tools, those are outlined in the relevant tools section of the case study. And as such, this case study is cited in other parts of the website. The last value capture strategy we have on the site is private transaction transfer fees, which are a charge that real property buyers must pay to a private party, such as the property's developer. These fees are usually calculated as a percentage of the sales price and typically paid upon purchase or reselling of the property. Developers attach this fee to new homes to help pay for infrastructure costs or to create a long-term stream of revenue. And these fees can potentially serve as a revenue for public entities in a scenario where the public entity owns the land. So as part of a joint development deal, for example. Here's what the private transaction transfer fee page looks like. It provides more information on this funding source and cites case studies of projects that have utilized this funding source. And the case study for this page is the West Dublin BART, which I covered earlier in the presentation. That is the end of the value capture section of the funding sources and special district section. Now moving on to the next page on this section, which is grants. And the grants on this page are grouped into 3 main groups, and that is regional funding sources, state funding sources, and federal funding sources. And within the regional funding sources group, included in there is some of SCAG's technical assistance opportunities. And all of the grant opportunities listed within each group are categorized by project type. And some of the projects that the listed grants can fund include general smart growth, transit-oriented development, housing, open space, water, to name a few examples. And here's what the grants page looks like on the website. As I mentioned, each group for grants is based on government level, so regional, state, and federal, and each one has its own tab, and the grants within each tab are outlined by project type. And the last section on the funding sources and special districts section are CEQA streamlining districts, which provide opportunity for streamlining of CEQA environmental review for proposed affordable housing developments if certain criteria are met. Opportunities for funding from the state also are available but vary by district. And the 2 types of CEQA streamlining districts covered on this section are housing sustainability districts and workforce housing opportunity zones. And I'll be going over each in the following slides. So starting with housing sustainability districts, or HSDs. HSDs include housing near public transportation. And to establish an HSD, a city or county must create an ordinance and prepare an environmental impact report, or EIR. And if certain criteria are met, EIRs will not be required for the individual housing projects developed within that HSD. A city or county that establishes an HSD is eligible to receive financial support from the state based on the number of housing units developed within the district, and HSDs have a 20% affordable housing requirement. Next, we have workforce housing opportunity zones, or WHOs. WHOs increase affordable housing near transportation and jobs, And to establish a WHOS, the city or county must adopt a specific housing development plan and create prepare an environmental impact report, or EIR, for that area. And the specific criteria are met. EIRs for the individual housing development projects that are developed within that area will not be required. The city or county may apply for no interest loan or grant from the state to help fund the required specific plan and EIR that are needed to establish a WHOS. And WHOS do have some affordable housing requirements, and that includes 50% units must be affordable to moderate, below or at moderate income households, and 10% of units must be affordable to lower income households. And here's what the CEQA streamlining districts page looks like. It provides the sections for both HSDs and WHOS, which provide more information on both of these districts. That is the end of the funding sources and special districts section. Now moving on to the next main section of the website, which is financing tools. The financing tools page mainly outlines the types of bonds that local governments can issue to finance and cover smart growth infrastructure costs. And the 5 types of bonds outlined on the site are general obligation bonds, which are bonds backed by general tax revenues as opposed to revenue generated from a specific project, and therefore typically applied to projects that do not generate revenue. Next, we have revenue bonds, which are bonds issued for municipal projects that generate revenue and are repaid solely by the revenue generated by the funded facility or geographic area. Next, we have grant anticipation revenue vehicle bonds, which are bonds repaid by future federal appropriations for federal transportation projects and are most commonly applied to highway construction. Next, we have private activity bonds, which are bonds issued by state or local governments to private business projects with public benefit, such as a privately developed low-income multifamily housing project. And lastly, we have lease revenue bonds, which are bonds issued by state or local governments that are secured with revenues from the lease of land, public facilities, and transportation assets. Here's what the financing tools page looks like on the website. Each tool is organized by subtab, a lot like the grants page, and each bond, if applicable, has a case study cited for that bond and also provides more information on each bond. That is the end of the financing tools section, and moving on to the last section on the website, which is partnerships. And several smart growth infrastructure projects begin as a partnership between a private and a public entity, such as joint development, for example. And the 3 types of partnerships outlined on the site include anchor institutions, which are entities that, such as universities, hospitals, and companies that have a strong ties to their geographic location because of real estate holdings, history, or mission. Next, we have private and public partnerships, which are partnerships between local governments and private entities. And these are usually in the form of joint development or parking management districts, which ensure efficient utilization of existing parking spaces and resources. And the last partnership type we have are interagency partnerships, which are partnerships between local governments and local or regional transportation agencies. And here's what the partnerships page looks like on the website. It provides more information on partnerships, as well as, a lot like the financing tools page, lists out each partnership type by subtab. As we can see here, we have the anchor institutions tab is open with some more information on anchor institutions and a cited case study, the Greater University Circle case study, which is the last case study I have to cover. So I'm going to briefly cover it. So the Greater University Circle case study is based on the University Circle, which is a community near downtown Cleveland, Ohio, that is home to institutions of education, health, and arts and culture. The University Circle Incorporated was formed by the anchor institutions of University Circle and has supported community and economic development in the community, specifically transit-oriented development and streetscape improvements. So that is the end. That is all the content available on the Smart Growth Infrastructure website. I'm going to navigate over to the Smart Growth infrastructure website to give you all a quick demo and give you a visual idea of how this information is displayed on the website and just give you an idea of what the website looks like. So I'm going to navigate over here to the website. Give me 1 second. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So here's what the SmartGrowth infrastructure website looks like. This is the homepage, and as I mentioned, the homepage provides some background on the website as well as lists out the types of SmartGrowth infrastructure projects that the tools and funding sources listed on the site can fund. And as you scroll down, you can see the 4 main sections in which the information on the website is organized in. So that is case studies, followed by funding sources and special districts, followed by financing tools, followed by partnerships. And if any of the case studies that I mentioned today piqued your interest, you can navigate over here to the case studies page, and all of the case studies that are across the website are all found on this page. So next, funding sources and special districts. Here's what this page looks like. And if you'd like to learn more about user fees or any of the value capture strategies I mentioned, would like to see the list of grants we have available on the site, or learn more about the SQL streamlining districts I covered, those pages are available on this page. Now moving on to financing tools. The financing tools page organizes each financing tool into sub-tab, which, as I mentioned, are interactive tabs that you can click on to learn more about each financing tool, and if applicable, a case study will be cited for that financing tool, though not all of the tools have a case study cited for them. And lastly, we have the partnerships page, which is very similarly organized as the financing tools page, and that each partnership type has its own tab with more information on each partnership and cited case studies of that partnership. And that is the SmartGrowth infrastructure website. I'm going to navigate over back to the slide deck just to show you all my contact information. Great, can everyone see my slide? This last slide here?
Yes.
Awesome. So that is the SmartGrowth infrastructure website. I'm happy to answer any questions now, but if beyond the presentation, anyone has any questions or you have any comments or feedback, please reach out to me at salazarv@scag.ca.gov, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions and address any comments. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. We have a couple of questions in the chat. First is, why do cities bother with forming EIFDs if no other taxing entities like the counties agree to participate? And what is in it for counties to participate in an EIFD and other newish tax increment financing districts? And to that end, Vanessa, if you'd like to take that question.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And that's a very good question. And as we saw with some of the case studies, there are a couple of EIFDs within the SCAG region that are city-county partnerships. There's 2 in LA County and 1 in Orange County. And that is because counties have found that there is definitely some financial incentive for counties to participate. And the case studies outline some more information on some of that financial participation and some of that the benefits that counties found with participating in city EIFDs.
Great, thanks, Vanessa. The second question has to do with EIFD county participation policies. Let's see. So I think it's good to provide some additional information on the EIFD participation policies that are in place already for Los Angeles County and for Orange County. These policies came into place because local jurisdictions were requesting counties to participate in tax increment financing, and local jurisdictions and the counties were able to negotiate to come to a good place where it would be optimal for both entities involved to, in fact, join in an EIFD. So LA County's participation policy has a recommended 15% contribution. So every county or city participating would need to put at least 15 cents on the dollar to contribute to an EIFD. That can come from property tax, but it doesn't have to come from solely property tax. Further, there needs to be fiscal analysis showing that there's a positive net impact to county general fund. It needs to align with the board priorities for affordable housing, homeless prevention, workforce development, or sustainability. There needs to be regional and community significance related to the board priorities. So for instance, it should support job creation, blight removal, or improvements to regional transportation. There is an affordable housing requirement for LA County to participate in an EIFD, where it's suggested that 20% of rental housing within an EIFD be affordable. There are other options for addressing this affordable housing requirement for LA County to participate in an EIFD. And it must answer the but-for test. So the contribution of county property tax is necessary as a precondition for targeted projects. So if it weren't for the investments that are happening in the community, and if it weren't for the county's participation, you wouldn't see the increase in property tax value. So the formation of the EIFD needs to make sense from a revenue generation standpoint. So that's LA County. A little bit more information about Orange County. They do not have a affordable housing requirement, but again, a lot of the criteria are based on the financial arrangement between the city and the county. So for instance, for Orange County, the city's contribution of property tax must be equal or greater than that contributed by the county general fund or special districts. The county must not be required to contribute more than 50% of its share of property tax increment annually. The fiscal analysis, that is necessary to be conducted to just gauge if the county should or can participate, needs to demonstrate a positive net impact to the county general fund. From a policy perspective, in addition to supporting economic development, the proposed EIFD must also align with established board priorities in at least one of the following areas, and that would be affordable housing, homeless prevention, workforce development and job creation, or transportation improvements. And then further, the EIFD must be proposed or must be consistent with state law. So there's criteria that has been set forth and adopted by the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County and the Board of Supervisors in Orange County to allow and to facilitate county participation in EIFDs. And with that, we've seen that some EIFDs have been successful in getting county participation. Vanessa covered the City of Placentia, County of Orange EIFD, as well as the Laverne, City of Laverne and County of Los Angeles EIFD. And then we're also seeing counties around the state initiate their own EIFDs without local jurisdiction participation in unincorporated areas. And one example of that is the West Carson EIFD, also from Los Angeles County. So just to answer that question, and then let's look and see what other questions we have in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Kim.
Great. Can we get a copy of the presentation? It's an excellent resource.
Yeah, of course. A copy of the presentation will be sent to all participants following today's webinar.
I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. I would like to give people one last opportunity before we close the session. This is one of those short and sweet, but to the point and really great information resource on Toolbox Tuesdays. Great. So with that, let's all thank Vanessa for providing this information. And again, we welcome any questions following the session. Feel free to direct them to Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And please do reach out. As I said, I'm more than happy to address any comments and address any feedback that you all may have. So thank you again.